Welcome to the All About You podcast. My name is Sheila and I am your host. I'm very happy to welcome back Lyn to the podcast. Lyn is a health coach specialising in ageing well. In my last conversation with Lyn, we went into the world of decluttering, and boy, did that conversation open up my eyes. Lyn not only gave us many pearls of wisdom on how to declutter, but she also talked about the effect clutter has on our mental health. That episode was published on the 2nd of June, so do please give that conversation a listen. So Lyn, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi Sheila, thanks so much. It's lovely to be here with you.
Lyn, today we are going into the world of sugar and we're looking at the good, the bad and ugly of sugar. Okay, so where do we start?
Well, let's have a look at it. Sugar actually is an addiction, and it's a real addiction. It's not mental, and it doesn't even revolve around willpower. Sugar physically changes your gut microbiome, the chemicals in your brain, and your hormones, and gives us those never-ending cravings. But if you actually nourish your body with proper food, you can break that addiction cycle, and you'll crave real food instead of sugar. And you can actually break this habit within 10 days, believe it or not. I know it sounds like, really, can you? But I've done it. And today we're going to give some hints and tips on to help people understand how they can do it. But what sugar does, it actually triggers the brain's pleasure and reward centers responsible for that release of the feel-good hormone dopamine. But these are the same brain areas stimulated by cocaine, nicotine, heroin, morphine and alcohol, which is kind of frightening, I think. And there's a doctor called Dr. Candace Pert. She's a research professor at Georgetown University Medical Center in Washington, D.C. And she says, I consider sugar to be a drug, a highly purified plant product that can become addictive. Relying on an artificial form of glucose, so sugar, to give us a quick pick-me-up is analogous to, if not as dangerous as, shooting heroin. It unbalances our blood sugar and causes us to experience false cravings when we're not even hungry. And one more little thing is a 2018 study in Connecticut College found that Oreo cookies were just as addictive to rats as cocaine is. I do wonder though, did the rats eat the filling of the Oreos first like we do or not? But yeah, that's what we're dealing with. That's sugar.
That is so scary, talking about how sugar is addictive and can be likened to this horrible list you have just read out of heroin and cocaine. It's just scary. I think we're all aware if we eat chocolate, it contains sugar. If we eat biscuits and cake, it contains sugar. That's pretty obvious. However, for me, it's the hidden sugars. And I have to say, I use a product here called tomato frito. Lyn and I are both living in Spain. And it's basically like a tomato puree you might use in your vegetable dishes. I have stopped using that because I was horrified at the amount of sugar. So now I'm using fresh tomatoes, fresh peppers, onion, and making my own. It's far cheaper. I make a big pot, put it in batches, put it in the freezer. It's hidden sugars that I find are scary, and it takes a lot of research to work out where they all are.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. And just as a hint for people, 4 grams of sugar is 1 teaspoon of sugar. So when you're looking at things like you saying the labels that you read, remember that as your sort of a guide. So it'll tell you on the label how much sugar there is. And remember, 4 grams is 1 teaspoon of sugar. So if you take something as an example, like a 500 ml Coke, everybody knows what that is, Coca-Cola, 500 ml. It's got 65 grams of sugar. So in 500 ml of Coke, you've got 16.25 teaspoons of sugar.
People say that Coca-Cola is very good for cleaning your toilet.
Brilliant. But in a way, you're polluting the groundwater by using it as well. But you did right, yes. Apparently cleaning acid off batteries and all sorts of fun things. Yeah.
I mean, this is interesting. You're sort of giving us a visual on teaspoons of sugar. If somebody said to you, okay, here's a teaspoonful of sugar, will you eat it? Most people would probably say no. And I doubt there's anyone who would actually enjoy eating a teaspoonful of sugar. And we are talking 1 teaspoon. If somebody showed you in teaspoons the quantity of sugar in the equivalent of that bottle of Coke and say, okay, what would you rather do? Eat all that sugar or drink the Coke? They would drink the Coke, probably no problem. But they are consuming the equivalent of all those teaspoonfuls of sugar. As a visual, that's just incredible.
Yes, and you're so right. Nobody would eat that amount of sugar. There's another example that I love as well, and that's, a good breakfast. What is a good breakfast? Start with a glass of orange juice. Have some, muesli or granola or something. When you start with a glass of orange juice, it can have up to 6 spoons of sugar in it. Freshly squeezed, or the bottled stuff that you get, there's a variety, it depends, of course. But that's 6 spoons before you started. And the tip on that is, because there's no fiber left in it as well. So it's just going to spike your blood sugar because there's no fiber to slow it down and help. It's just concentrated. So if you do like your orange juice, make sure you do fresh, but start off with half. So half a glass of orange juice, half a glass of water, and cut that down as you go, and only have maximum 2 juices a day. But so you take that as 6 spoons of sugar, then you go and get your granola, and you have that, and that's got any cereal in a box is full of sugar. And by the time you've done this as a breakfast, you can look up to 17 teaspoons of sugar. And you think, my word, I would never put 17 spoons in a plate and sit and eat it. I mean, it's just not something you would do, but that's what you're doing and feeding to your family often with just not knowing,
I mean, I know the manufacturers legally have to put the contents of their product, particularly, we're talking about processed foods here, yes. How much carbohydrate, sugar, the E numbers, all the rest of it. And we all look at these food labels and most of us haven't got a clue. And it can say, it contains, 7 grams of sugar. Well, if you said to most people, what's 7 grams of sugar? Can you, here's a bag of sugar, here's a measure. Can you show me what 7 grams? We wouldn't have a clue. If manufacturers put visuals of teaspoons of sugar per 100 grams on all these products, I think we'd all be horrified.
We would, and that's why I say use that as a guide. 4 grams of sugar is 1 teaspoon, because they're not going to change their labels, because we would be horrified. But while we're talking about that sort of thing, the other thing of packaging that we need to look out for, just to be aware of, is that a lot of the packaging claims are actually false. They're just marketing hype. So things like light, you often see light, like this, like that. Well, what? In color? Or have you just watered it down? What have you done with it? Multi-grains and natural. I know we're going off sugar a little bit, but I mean, cereal's got the grains and stuff in it as well. So they only need to have one type of grain or natural ingredient to be able to call it natural. The rest's all processed. Organic. Well, you get organic sugar. You get organic jelly beans. Doesn't mean that they're good for you. And even, Sheila, if it says no added sugar, doesn't mean that it hasn't got a lot of sugar in it. And the other thing on packaging you always need to look at, it always says your serving size is 100 grams. But then on the side of that, it's suggested 30 grams. That is so misleading, because 30 grams is 2 tablespoons. Are you going to eat 2 tablespoons of cereal? Don't think so. So that's very misleading. And even things like low carb, well, it's often highly processed junk food. And low fat, if you see low fat, always check your sugar content, because they've got this thing called a bliss point, where big food have laboratories and they play with salt, sugar and fat, and they manipulate it to make it kind of addictive. so that you want more and more of this stuff. So always have a look. If they've taken out the sugar, or if they've taken out the fat, they've pushed up the sugar, and that sort of thing. So they play with those. So talking of that, if you're going to have anything like milk or yogurt, have full fat, because otherwise, again, they've taken out the fat and put in sugar. You don't want to do that either. And even talking about things like gluten-free doesn't mean it's healthy. It's often made from genetically modified corn. Now they call it bioengineered to fool us again. And it's loaded with sugar and unhealthy fats. So that's also wrong. And a simple thing like if you've got wheat, you've always got sugar. So if you've got wheat, they refine the wheat and they take out 25 nutrients when they refine wheat. And they only put back 5. They put back iron, vitamin B1, 2, and 3, and folic acid. And the rest is lost. We don't get it, Fruit flavored, anything flavored, doesn't have to have any fruit in it. It's made in a laboratory. And when we eat stuff, anything we eat, anything we put on our bodies, anything like that goes through your liver. And your liver really, really battles with all of this stuff every single day. And then even if it says low sugar and you go, oh, that's good, I can try that. It contains a thing called maltodextrin, which is technically a starch, not a sugar, but it breaks down very quickly in our bodies into sugar. So again, they're trying to kind of fool you. The other thing that's interesting is nobody knows exactly how many names there are for sugar. I've read reports that say 60. I've read reports that say 600. So the different names are things that you've never heard of. So you don't even realize you're eating sugar. So it really is important to look at labels and learn to read them, to empower yourself, to be able to choose like you've done with your tomato frito thing. It's so important that we do that.
I mean, I think most of us, Lyn, we sort of go through our cupboards, our pantries, write our shopping list. We go to the supermarket, we grab, and we're generally buying the same thing week in, week out. Do we look at the labels? Generally not. And I have to say, the tomato thing was a real shocker for me, because you just think, okay, it's just like liquidized tomato in a carton. No. Absolutely not. And you look at all the E numbers, and I'm no scientist. I have got no idea what any of these E numbers are. But this is what we do. We just grab the stuff we need that's on our list, put it in our cupboard, use it to make our meals, and rinse and repeat.
And off we go. Absolutely. And it's really bad, but we do have to become aware of that. I mean, tomato sauce, when I was a kid, tomato sauce was exactly that, blended tomatoes, in anything. Now, ketchup, tomato sauce, depends on where you come from, can be up to 23% sugar. Crisps, you can even have sugar in crisps, savory crisps. Why do you need sugar in crisps? And the interesting thing is we've completely corrupted our palates with the sugar, the chemicals, the flavorings, and salt. So we have to start slowly, because we can re-educate our palates. And so reduce things at one item at a time. So you want a pasta sauce with a little bit of sugar. You want peanut butter without sugar. So we've always got to look for those hidden sugars that you've talked about. And your taste buds actually adapt after a couple of weeks. And you'll find that sugar becomes too sweet. I find I can't eat sugar. I really can't. It's just too sweet. And especially if you try and make sure you've got a varied and interesting diet. And just eating whole foods, whole grains, lentils, beans, nuts, seeds, fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, your meat, fish, chicken. Get rid of the processed foods completely. Anything in a packet or a box, anything. And the fun thing is that they say your taste buds, if they can't be with the foods they want, they learn to love the foods they're with. So it's a nice way of re-educating your taste buds back to what it used to be,
I mean, I love that, what you're saying there, that motto. I think we all need to have that on the top of our shopping list. But I'm just sort of thinking to myself here, we often hear ourselves saying, oh, I need something sweet, particularly after a meal. I need something sweet, and whether that's a piece of chocolate, a dessert, or something like that. So we have this craving for something sweet. So then we get in the hit of sugar. Then we're probably getting this post-sugar slump because we've spiked our blood. And then we get this come down from sugar where, oh, I feel all sluggish and tired. So then we give ourselves another hit. So we are now on this up and this down, this up and this down. Can we talk about that a bit? This sugar, this hit of sugar, what's actually happening in our bodies and our brains, Lyn, with that hit of sugar?
So basically, it's balance. You need to balance your blood sugar and the cravings will go away. And to do that, you need to eat proper food. So what's happening in your body is your body's saying to you, Sheila, I'm hungry. And you go, oh, a chocolate will be good, or a packet of crisps. Exactly how you're describing it. So you have that. And you go, but I'm still hungry. I want something else. And you go and have another packet of crisps, another chocolate, another something, a biscuit maybe. And the thing is, your body is crying out for nutrients and we keep feeding it junk. So what you do is you spike in your blood sugar. And every time you spike your blood sugar, it actually negatively impacts your arteries. Okay, so the thing is, your body is turning everything into sugar because our bodies need glucose to function. But it needs good quality stuff, so that we don't have the brain fog. We don't have the thing when it does that is basically it doesn't need all this glucose, so it lays it down as fat immediately. If you're eating too much sugar. And that's why people find it so hard to lose weight, because they've got to cut this sugar addiction and your body will go back down to normal. So, and then when it spikes down, your body's too low on the sugar and you've got no energy, that sort of thing. It's just awful. So you've got to try and balance your blood sugar by eating properly. Get rid of all the junk food. And just eat proper food. Nature's given us a whole rainbow of good fruit and veggies that we can use, which are really, they've got all the nutrients, they've got the vitamins, the minerals, that sort of thing. So you've got to, if you imagine your arteries as a long, thin, like a hose pipe, you're putting food in and it's spiking up and it's going down below and up and down. And we've got to try and balance that, because then your body won't lay down the fat. You'll have lots of energy, your brain will be clear, and you'll be able to function properly. I see my clients are just so happy when this happens. You get so many positive benefits. I mean, your skin's better, your mood is even better, because sugar has a terrible impact on our moods. And a lot of people don't realize that. And especially on children as well. I mean, those little bodies. I saw something that said a human being, an adult person of 80 kilos or whatever, a man, can take a shot of tequila and they'll be fine, they'll be okay, their body can cope with that. But when we give little kids too much sugar, it's like hitting their bodies with a shot of tequila. And your body processes sugar and tequila in the same way. So when you're giving kids too much sugar, that's what you're actually doing to them. You're hitting them with this excess. And that's why kids get hyper, they're ADHD, they've got all these things going on. If you just cut down the sugar, it can help them tremendously. And you mentioned processed foods, which all include sugar, as we've said. If you give animals processed foods, within 6 months, they will be ill. And if you take away those processed foods, they'll basically recover. But we're on those processed foods for so many years that it actually causes so much damage. And there's different eras that scientists have identified over the years. There was the famine and disease. And now we're in the processed foods. And it's the lifestyle diseases that are all preventable that we are suffering from. And it's basically because of the way we eat and what we eat.
There's so much to unpack here, Lyn. And when you were talking about the spike in sort of the brain and the body with the insulin of eating sugar, that's exactly what a drug taker would be experiencing with the, taking the hit of drugs. They're getting the great big highs and they get, the great big plummets. That's the same with sugar. And then going back to your point with the orange juice, if you eat a whole orange, you're getting the fiber, the minerals, etc. Mm-hmm. So many people would just rather pop open a carton, unscrew a bottle, and particularly here in Valencia, It's very common in our supermarkets. We have the machines, they put the oranges in, it squirts the juice out, you put it in a bottle, you screw the top on, you pay for it. We see that all the time here, and that's relatively cheaply because of all the oranges. Yes. But we are not getting the fibre that we need. Our body needs fibre to keep those hose pipes working. Incredible when you are saying about these sugar spikes, likening that to the addicts as well, because many years ago, processed foods were not freely available. I remember when I was a kid, it just wasn't. Everything was cooked from scratch. And if you had a packet of crisps, that was a big treat. But now there is so much processed food, and they're saying now we've got more people suffering with disease and illnesses because of they are overeating and they are overeating processed food than the people who do not have enough food and nutrition and are suffering. If we think about the amount of processed food we're eating, I mean, if you said to somebody, eat a kilo of potatoes, cooked potatoes, that's quite a lot. But if you gave them bags of crisps, they would probably keep going, just keep going. So eating the food in its raw form is very different to eating that is processed.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and nature's given us that, you know. And just an aside on the potatoes, when you eat potatoes, the big white potatoes, the normal potato, they make crisps out of, but normal, those are very high they spike your blood sugar quite a lot. So it's better to actually eat baby potatoes. They're much better for you, or sweet potatoes. Both of those are far better at helping you stabilize your blood sugar. And the other tip for stabilizing your blood sugar is make sure that you always eat protein at every single meal. And even if you have a snack, so have a couple of nuts and like 50 grams of nuts or something, because nuts do have fat, but it's good fats, but you don't want to overdo that. So have a couple of nuts, 50 grams of nuts and an apple, or, you know, have a little piece of cheese and a piece of fruit or something like that. But your meals as well, because that slows down that sugar, that spiking. It actually helps it slow down so that it doesn't, you know, it stabilizes it more. The other interesting one is cinnamon. If you put cinnamon, a little teaspoon of cinnamon into a drink or into your cereal or your breakfast or whatever you're having, your oats, whatever it is, that actually also helps stabilize your blood sugar.
I did know that one because I must admit in my smoothie, I do put cinnamon, yeah. And I think it's good for inflammation as well. I wanted to sort of talk to you, Lyn, because, you know, we're talking about the effects of the body. The body is incredible. It's meant to heal itself. And given the right conditions, most ailments and diseases can be firstly prevented, and then B, the body will repair itself given the right conditions. And I always liken this as if you have a cold. I always say a cold is 3 days, a beginning, a middle and an end. If you sort of say, okay, I'm going to rest, drink plenty of fluid, give your body chance to recover, it will recover very quickly. However, if you're trying to carry on with your life at 100 miles an hour and you're popping pills, your body has not got the correct conditions to recover, and you'll recover a lot quicker. We want to override the body's natural mechanism. I haven't got time, so I'll just pop some pills and I'll carry on. The body is incredible, but we need to sort of meet it halfway and say, okay, you know, I need the rest, or I need to recover from the cold. I just need to downtime, give the body chance. And this is why you get the fever, because I was like, it's all these little men inside your body are all whizzing around. This is what my parents used to tell me when I was a child. You know, as a kid, you get colds and coughs. Okay, you've got to rest because all the little men are all buzzing around in your body, beavering away, repairing your body. That's why you're hot and sweaty, because they're all working really hard. And I just love that visualization. I've got to rest so that they can do their job. And that was great, because this is what the body does. It can recover. But we have a tendency to override.
So true, Sheila. I love that analogy. That's just wonderful. And it's true. Your body's trying. You've got to work with your body. We seem to work against our bodies, and our bodies are miraculous. I mean, they really are amazing, the things that they can do. But they need our help. And as they say, only you decide what goes into your mouth. Nobody else. Not the waiter at the restaurant, not your friend, not whatever. We have to take control of that, and we have to make sure we nourish our bodies. And I mean, don't you want to feel good? Don't you want to have endless energy? Don't you want to be vibrant and enjoy every day, of our lives? I mean, it's a gift. Every day is a gift. But you've got to, play your part. The scary thing for me is that sugar, we talked about it being equal to, drugs, the effect equal to drugs. The thing is, sugar's legal. It's available everywhere, so we've got to, get the knowledge and make that choice so that we can help those little men run around and try and prevent us even getting those colds in the first place.
We can all go to our pantries and our fridge and our freezer, and we can all start looking at the sugar content of all the normal products we buy week in, week out. That's going to be scary in itself. Can we talk about what is a good process for weaning ourselves off sugar? Where would I start today and saying, okay, after this conversation with Lyn, I'm going to go through my cupboards and have a good old scout around. And now I've got the visual. I can look at this project. I could get a visual on my phone. Okay, this is how much sugar is in the serving size or 100 grams. I can do that. But how can I physically start weaning myself off sugar? Talk us through that process.
Okay, so there's a few angles to that. Let's go through them. First of all, obviously, as we've said, remember 4 grams is 1 teaspoon. So have a look at your labels as well. Also, just have a look at the amount of salt in things, because that's another thing that they play with, as we've said. So I'm going to also look at sugar alternatives first, because some people really like sugar. So there are things, as you would know, artificial sweeteners. And they're basically synthetic substitutes, and they add it to food and drinks to make them sweet. And many people often think that they should use these when trying to lose weight and to get off sugar. But they actually not always that great. They can cause headaches, nausea, moodiness, dizziness, obesity, and inflammation. And it was believed that most of these sweeteners go straight through your body and through your digestive system undigested and pass out unchanged. But recently, they're actually finding that these sweeteners may affect our gut microbiome negatively. And so a lot more research needs to be done. So it's very important to be aware of those as well and to cut down on them. But not everybody's affected in the same way. So it is a personal decision. But if you're looking for that bit of sweetness and you need an alternative, you can look at things like xylitol. Xylitol is made from fruits and veggies, from the peelings, from bark, that sort of thing. So it is safer, but just whatever you do, don't give it to your animals. It's highly dangerous for animals. And the other thing is stevia, which is a little green leaf, comes from the South American countries. Incredibly sweet, but that is also still, okay. And then a lot of people say to me, well, what about raw honey and maple syrup? Now, those are less processed as long as you get, the good quality ones. So have a look at those. You can use them, but they're still sugar. And the interesting thing is that when you heat up sugar, we know that it destroys a lot of the properties, but it still gives you that sweetness, So if you're looking for a little bit, those are kind of better alternatives. So I think for starting off getting rid of sugar, basically it's creating that awareness of what you're having. And you can start off with the sugars that you add to stuff as well. So your coffee, your tea, whatever it is, your cereals, if you're eating those, try and rather to make your own if you can, or to use no instant anything. It's all got sugar in it. Instant oats, don't do any of that stuff. So get rid of those things out of your cupboard as well. But instead of adding 2 teaspoons of sugar to your coffee, start off by adding 1 for the first week, a half for the second week. Most people can't just do the cold turkey thing. So you've got to wean yourself off sugar and replace it with more natural foods, and make sure, plan your menus so that you can actually see what you're going to be eating, because that's incredible. When you write down what you've eaten in a day and you look at how much sugar is there, it's interesting. Also, planning your meals for the week if you can, including your weekends. Go shopping. Be aware of what you're buying. It's so much easier if you get delayed at the office or wherever and you come home and you go, oh, what am I going to make for supper? Let me grab some processed whatever, or go past the takeaway place and get some junk food. If you've planned, it's a lot easier because you actually know what you're going to eat and it doesn't worry you. You're quite comfortable. I don't even have to think about it. So that's also a very good way of doing it. Leave out the table sugar. Table sugar, which is the one we put in our tea and coffee and on our cereals and things, has absolutely no nutritional value whatsoever. There's nothing good in it for us at all. It's so highly processed. And again, talking about things like fizzy drinks and the juices, cut those down as well. Having water or having herbal teas. Now, a lot of people seem to battle with water, but basically, if you put a slice of cucumber into it, or cut up a strawberry, or a piece of lemon, anything like that, if you're one of those people who can't do water very easily, that's a great way to do it. So if you are going to buy something processed, have a look at what's on the shelf and try and buy the one with the lowest sugar. You can also use things like extracts, like vanilla, coconut, almond. Those sort of things help as well, to give you a bit of a balance and take your palate away from the sugar. Use spices. We've talked about cinnamon, ginger. That's brilliant. I mean, ginger's so good for us, especially us here now. We're going into winter, and ginger is brilliant for you, especially fresh ginger in hot water. Something like that is stunning. You can also use things like mint, rosemary. You can make tea from some of these things. Mint tea is brilliant. Just mint leaves in hot water. Rosemary, very good for your brain as well. Fresh rosemary in tea. Things like that. So it's becoming aware of those and eating whole foods. You always ask yourself, does it have a mother or can I plant it? Then it's good to eat. If it doesn't, like a box of cereal has no mother and you can't plant it. So it's your whole foods that you're looking to eat. And if you slowly start being aware and you start changing those little things one thing at a time and having a shopping list, not just running into the supermarket and grabbing, it's a lot easier to do it that way. And it does take time. But as I say, if you're really focused, you can do it in 10 days. It's not about that. It's about creating a balanced eating plan and changing the way you eat. It's not a diet. Diets don't work. If diets worked, we wouldn't be having this conversation in the first place, because you wouldn't, you'd be needing to worry about your health. You've got to change the way you eat and create an eating plan for yourself and your family for life. That's really what it is. And if you get your blood sugar balanced, it's actually quite easy to adapt when you do go out. You know what to look for on the menus. Yes, it's not perfect, but you can choose. And a lot of people say, but if I go out, there's so many things I don't know what to eat. Well, if you know where you're going, if you know which restaurant you're going to or whatever, go online if you can and look at the menu beforehand and choose one or two things so that when you get to the restaurant, you actually already know what you're going to eat. Choosing one, they might not have it, choose two. So again, you're not tempted to have all the rubbish that everybody else might be having. Decide which is the healthiest thing on that menu and go for it. That helps a lot as well. So also remember, the first few days when you start going off sugar, you could feel a bit ratty and not great, because your body's now fighting it. You're fighting these cravings. It wants sugar, and you basically just got to have that mindset. You've got to be committed. So everybody says, oh, I'm not motivated, or I am motivated. Motivation goes up and down like waves. It just does. So you're not always motivated. You're not going to be. But if you're committed, commitment overrides that. So on a day when you're feeling down, you go, why am I doing this? Why do I want to get off sugar? I don't want to have diabetes. I don't want to have heart disease. I don't want to have excess weight that makes me feel awful. Whatever your reasons. Remind yourself that you've committed to that, and then it makes it a lot easier for you to stick to it. And tell your friends you're doing it. They might want to do it with you, or your family, to help keep you on track. I mean, some families are supportive, some aren't. So then if your family's not supportive and they come home with all the chocolates and all the crisps, have your own little shelf in the cupboard where you have your nuts and, the things that are healthier for you. In the fridge, have some cream cheese, that sort of thing that you can have with snacks. Create a little snack cupboard, a little space in the fridge for your snacks and a little cupboard. Eventually you find they start raiding your stuff because actually it's nicer. But that's another way of, because not everybody's family supports them. Everybody, Friday night we have a pizza, then we sit down and we have chocolate and we watch TV or something like that. So you've got to try and break that, and a lot of people don't want to do that. So it's trying to help them, and when they see the difference it's making to you, it's a lot easier for people to start going, what are you doing? I want to do that.
I mean, there were so many pearls of wisdom yet again from you, Lyn, here. I mean, I've just been making a few notes here. I remember, I think it was last winter, I picked up a cold. I got my hot water, my honey, my lemon, and my fresh ginger. It was just a really nice drink. It soothed my throat. It just made me feel a bit more comfortable. And then I remember in the summer, I kept going with it and I just made it as a hot drink, but let it cool. And, the ginger's really good. And you just feel that ginger is like, it's got a powerful kick to it. And what I did, I got given a load of lemons. So I squeezed them, put them in these ice cube bags, and I could just take 1 cube of lemon out, put it in a glass, hot water, the ginger, didn't use the honey, and it was delicious. And the cucumbers, you say, and the strawberry, because I think a lot of us do struggle with drinking water. But if we can just put a bit of, natural flavour in it, cucumber is amazing.
Mm-hmm. And cucumber and mint, pretty, you make it look attractive too. There's a lot of options. And just talking of water, it is so important to stay hydrated. Depending on, the size of your body, you're looking at 6 to 8 glasses of water a day, because everything in your body needs hydration. I mean, every cell in your body needs water. And if you're not replenishing it, and we must remember things like alcohol actually dry us out, and that's another thing to watch out, is what you drink. It's quite interesting to see the amount of sugar in drinks, and especially these flavored waters. Please don't. They are just rubbish, okay? And the flavor, again, is chemical. I had a client the other day. He's starting off, and he really needs to change the way he eats. He starts off with an energy drink in the morning. By 10 o'clock, he's eating a chocolate and drinking a Coke. He has no real food, and he knows no better. He said, I thought I was doing myself a favor when I don't have energy and I have a chocolate. He was gobsmacked when I started going through what he should be doing and how to change. And nobody's ever told me that. I didn't know that. The information is out there, but I think people are intimidated. There's so much out there that's also confusing. So it's starting small. It's getting that knowledge and just changing one little thing at a time. Just keep moving forward.
I mean, if we go back to sort of tomato-based products, if we go to the supermarket and we buy our tomato ketchup, our tomato puree, all these other various things that we use in our curries, spaghetti bolognese, stews, all the rest of it, they can be quite expensive. But if you buy a couple of kilos of tomatoes, onions, peppers, have a good old cook up, and depending on what you want it, whether you make it really puree-like or whether you want your tomato and your onions chunky, the cost of doing that, you're going to get far more bang for your buck doing that than buying a single carton or a single bottle of something.
And there's so many positives there. I mean, you're eating better, you're supporting natural guys, people growing vegetables instead of all the big, producers that just put everything in a bottle. You're helping the environment as well, because we're growing more. There's none of as much of the plastic and the cartons and whatever, because usually you can get it in a bag or you can take your own bag. And here in Spain, I mean, we have the most amazing variety of tomatoes. There's some really nice different ones depending on what you're doing. But anything, people say, oh, I don't have time. And, when you look at your health, you don't have time not to. And even if you just start small, what is the cost of buying junk, ending up with a lifestyle disease, which impacts every aspect of your life, and some of them are really debilitating, as opposed to cooking your own food and being healthy. It's sort of like an instant gratification in a way, but you also see the long-term benefit of it. You really can't do yourself any harm by doing that. And especially if you can get organic, you're supporting organic farmers, you're helping them. And I know organic is another one of those terms where, what if the farmer next door is spraying chemicals and the wind blows? Okay, we'll never get 100% perfect. But it is great to be able to support the guys who are really trying, so that's good. And it's good for your health. And you feel better when you eat good food. I mean, you really do. Take a bottle of processed apple juice or go and eat an apple. What is nicer? What is better? And have a little piece of cheese with your apple or some nuts with your apple, whatever, just to give that balance. We know where it all went wrong, but it started with the Industrial Revolution, where they took people away from eating out in their fields where they were quite healthy, took them into cities to start working in factories, and they needed to feed these people. And that's where our diet, eventually they discovered protein because the people were getting sick. And then that's where our diet of high fat, high sugar and salt came from. And it's done us no good. It's done us absolutely no good.
My mantra is health is wealth. You've got your health, you can do so many things. And I think it's rather like I'm responsible for what food comes into this house, what food I put into my body. I'm an educated adult. I can read my food labels. And I love the idea of you saying, yes, we all love to go out and eat somewhere. Do my research before I go. Have in my mind, okay, this is what I'm going to have, or I'm going to say, can I have this, but without X, Y, Z? We have the power to make those choices. They always say in a supermarket, always shop the perimeter. Don't go in the centre, because that's where all the danger zone with the crisps and the biscuits and the sweets and all that sort of thing. Yeah, definitely. Lyn, is there anything else you want to cover before we finish?
I think just a little summary would be, remember, sugar addiction it's not a mental thing. It's actually in our guts, which is important because people go, I haven't got willpower. It's not about that. It's in your gut and you need to change it. And we hear more and more about what's happening in our gut, that everything comes from there. So read your labels, look out for the hidden sugars in everything. Eat real food and stay hydrated. And also be realistic. You're not going to go from one day to the next by just changing everything because it's not sustainable. And you've got to make small, sustainable changes. You can even track your progress. You can create a little chart of what you'd like to give up. So it could be no more chocolate. It could be no more dessert. It could be drinking less fizzy drinks, whatever. Create a little list and the days of the week, and how many you currently do, and then reduce them and set yourself a target or not, and just see how many you reduce each week, and it focuses you for the next week, and you go, oh, didn't realize that I had a Coke each day. I'm having what did we say? I'm having 16.25 grams of sugar in one Coke each day, and I'm having a Coke every day. Do I really want to do that? And creating that awareness. So tracking progress is good. Even if you put a little chart on the fridge, something like that. And be kind to yourself as well, because it's hard, it's tough. We've been doing this for so long. You were brought up on some of this stuff. So it's some of them are lifelong habits that we need to change. So be kind to yourself. If you don't get it right, every meal, everything you put in your mouth is a new opportunity to correct it. So just be kind to yourself and don't, oh, I'm so stupid. I had sugar today. Don't do that. Just go, oh, why did I have sugar? Maybe because I didn't plan a meal. Maybe because I didn't run out at the last minute and grab a snack to take with me. I rather ran into the supermarket and bought junk. If I just put a little apple and some nuts in a container or whatever, in my handbag, in my backpack, in my whatever, I could have saved having that chocolate or that awful packet of crisps that actually made me didn't make me feel good. So those are the kind of things I think I would end with.
Well, I'm just going to give myself a gold star in there after what you said there, because I have a little plastic tub with raw almonds, and I just call them my emergency nuts, and I never ever leave the house without them. I'm really hungry, I'll nip in and I'll have a coffee and I'll have a croissant or something. No, just stick to the raw nuts. They will thank you. And I love the fact that you said every single meal is an opportunity. Literally start small with your next meal. Okay, you might not be able to change what you're going to eat because it's prepared. Look at that meal and go, okay, is there anything on here that I could improve, whether it's the sugar, whether it's the salt, etc. What can I improve on this meal? And then, okay, what are you planning for the next meal? Is there anything I can change there? I love that, Lyn. Be kind to ourselves and look at one meal at a time. It's like running. Don't focus on the marathon, just focus on the next few steps, whether that's outside your front door or wherever. Just look at the next opportunity to do good for your body. I love that.
And remember, you can retrain your taste buds. As I said, if the taste buds can't be with the food they love, they'll learn to love the food they're with. So that works two ways. They've learned to love the processed food, but they previously loved real food. So go back to real food.
Oh my God, we've had such a brilliant conversation here, Lyn. I just feel so inspired to print off a list of all these different teaspoons of sugar, what they visually look like, stick it on my fridge, grab something out of my larder and go, okay, let's see a visual on how much sugar is in this total product. And then let's see what a serving size would be. Not pleasant viewing, shall we say. Lyn, thank you so much. You've given us so much information. Some of it is very scary, but sometimes we need to have that. So if we think a teaspoonful of sugar, it looks very similar to cocaine. I mean, there's a lot for us to digest in this conversation. Lyn, thank you so much.
Only a pleasure, Sheila. And yeah, remember, don't be scared. Just be empowered and have the knowledge and make that choice. So that's great. Thank you for having me. That was wonderful. I enjoyed that. Thanks.
You are very welcome. And I'll put all the links to your website, etc., so people can get in touch with you if they want to have a conversation with you about how they personally start on this journey of being kind to themselves, looking after their body. Look after your body because it will look after you in the future. Lyn, thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the conversation, and I hope you had some interesting pointers there, some motivation from Lyn, and some amazing information. Please subscribe for future episodes. It is free. And if you have a story to tell, please contact me on allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com and let's tell your story.